Very quickly, before we get into this video, I would recommend watching part 1. It's not essential, but I would recommend it as it goes into the earlier part of Leonard Cohen's life and career and how we get to this point. The first song I'm going to discuss today is my personal favourite Leonard Cohen song, a tear-inducing folk ballad written in the form of a letter, describing a love triangle between a woman called Jane, Leonard Cohen, and an unnamed man, referred to only as Cohen's brother and killer. The song is called Famous Blue Raincoat. I distinctly remember the first time I played Famous Blue Raincoat to my dad, and the first line actually made him laugh with how Leonard Cohen-esque it sounded, the gloomy, deep voice and singing about the dark and the cold. The song's lyrics are phrased in amphibrax, a stressed syllable between two unstressed syllables, perhaps reflective of the song's content, Jane stuck between the two men.
It's 4 in the morning, the end of December. I'm writing you now just to see if you're better. New York is cold, but I like where I'm living. There's music on Clinton Street all through the evening.
The spondee on New York makes those two words stand out, allowing connotations of the setting to arise, the freedom and opportunity it's seen to represent. 4 in the morning, the end of December, is very standard Cohen-ish gloom thus far. The music on Clinton Street, in spite of the cold, touches on another prominent theme in Cohen's work, beauty found in that which is not inherently beautiful, such as in his song First We Take Manhattan, where he proclaims,
I'm guided by the beauty of our weapons.
Jane came by with a lock of your hair. She said that you gave it to her.
People being fragmented like this is a motif throughout Famous Blue Raincoat. The lock of hair, as well as flake of your life described later in the song, present people and their lives as something that can be simply deconstructed. Jane here is the first person's name we have heard throughout the song, humanising her in a way that Cohen and the man have not been afforded at this point in the song. The man is never given a name throughout the song, therefore he's never given the same level of humanisation that Jane or Leonard are. However, Cohen's only mention by name comes at the very end, signing off Sincerely L. Cohen, creating a decidedly formal ending to the song, demonstrating the disconnect between the man and Cohen.
Oh, the last time we saw you, you looked so much older. Your famous blue raincoat was torn at the shoulder. You'd been to the station to meet every train, yes, but then you came home without Lily Marlene.
Lily Marlene was a popular song with troops of both Allied and Axis forces in World War II. Several lyrics of the song are referenced in Famous Blue Raincoat, such as "Give me a rose to show how much you care, tie to the stem a lock of golden hair." If Lily Marlene represents love in the face of hate, then perhaps Famous Blue Raincoat represents the inverse, hate in the face of love.
And what can I tell you, my brother, my killer? What can I possibly say?
This line references the story of Cain and Abel. As Cain killed Abel for receiving God's favour, it directly draws a comparison between God and Jane, demonstrating Cohen's clear infatuation with her, in spite of the song not actually talking about her that much, but only in terms of Leonard's spite for her other lover. In my view, the song's best line comes later, saying, "Thanks for the trouble you took from her eyes, I thought it was there for good, so I never tried." The pause between took and from creates a sense that Cohen is about to thank the nameless man for a favour he never had to do, and in a way he is, but it's instead revealed that the trouble comes from within Jane. If the song is mourning a love turned cold, then this line marks the acceptance stage of grief. Incidentally, Leonard Cohen's blue raincoat with the tear at the shoulder was stolen from Marianne's apartment and never seen again. The next song I'd like to discuss is unquestionably his most famous work, and while I personally don't enjoy it as much as his other work, any discussion of Leonard Cohen is incomplete without talking about it. The first verse is the most well-known and recognisable of Cohen's whole career.
I've heard there was a secret chord that David played and it pleased the Lord, but you don't really care for music, do you?
By this time in Leonard Cohen's career, the acoustic guitars and sweeter, softer voice were gone, replaced by synthetic instrumentation and a deeper, more resonant voice. Over 80 verses were drafted for Hallelujah in a moment of creative madness in a New York hotel, written by Cohen banging his head against the floor in his underwear. The verses become increasingly secular as he wrote them, and the final song demonstrates an interconnectedness between love and religion. The word Hallelujah has different connotations in Jewish and Christian tradition. In Jewish, it's a more direct praise to God, whereas in Christianity, it's a more general word of praise and elation. So for Cohen, the word Hallelujah would have had even stronger religious connotations than for a Christian writer. A lot of people have talked about the tonal ambiguity and word painting that come at the beginning of the song, so I won't dwell on them too much here. The opening of the song has a slight tonal ambiguity, but ends over "You don't really care for music, do you?" the first example of word painting in the song, where the lyrical content is reflected in a close analysis of the music. This word painting continues as chords 4 and 5 play over "It goes like this," the 4th, the 5th, and major and minor chords are heard over the minor fall, the major lift. The first time the word Hallelujah is heard, it comes at the end of the verse, and it's heard at the end of each verse, a triumphant exultation, irrespective of how negative the content is. The baffled king is equally ambiguous. Is it Cohen himself composing the song, or the Old Testament's King David mentioned earlier in the verse? Did Cohen see himself as King David, in a way?
Your faith was strong, but you needed proof. You saw her bathing on the roof, her beauty and the moonlight overthrew you. She tied you to a kitchen chair, she broke your throne and she cut your hair, and from your lips she drew the Hallelujah.
With relation to the first verse, this is a reference to the story of King David and Bathsheba, King David willing to engage in sin to have the woman who he can never have, spying her in her bathtub.
Hallelujah, hallelujah.
The song's gospel-influenced refrain repeats the title, allowing these verses of love to be connected by an overarching religious theme.
As for me, all I ever learned from love is how to shoot at someone who outdrew you.
The later line, "All I've learned from love is to shoot somebody who outdrew you," shows Cohen's pessimistic views of love, like famous Blue Raincoat does. Cohen only presents love in terms of hate. There's a lot more to say about Hallelujah, but it's been done to death more than any other Leonard Cohen song, and there's near endless interpretations of it, as well as hundreds of covers. John Cale, Jeff Buckley, Rufus Wainwright, etc. The final song of Cohen's I'll discuss comes from 2016, the title track of You Want It Darker. Undoubtedly Cohen's bleakest song, released just over a fortnight before Leonard Cohen would die, and the only music Cohen would release in a world where he lived and Marianne didn't. As I've hopefully established by this point, religion was of utmost importance to Cohen for the duration of his life. And for a God he'd given so much to, the realization that he was about to lose everything to death created a song oozing with vitriol towards the God he had given so much to throughout his life. At the age of 82 when the song was released, the voice is notably withering and deeper than before, and the instrumentation darker than ever before.
If you are the healer means I'm broken and lame.
Literally broken and lame as he wrote the song, Cohen was frail to the point where he couldn't make it to a recording studio, instead having to record sat down in his own home.
If you are the dealer, I'm out of the game.
Cohen stares in the face of God and asks where his healing is, and comments on the unfairness of it all, with wanting to get out of the game. The second person pronoun addresses God directly, a hauntingly accusatory tone to Cohen's idealized almighty creator, the Lord he sang of 32 years earlier in Hallelujah.
You want it darker. We kill the flame.
We Kill the Flame shows everyone has to face their own death alone, with no divine assistance to help with having to let go. Cohen has seen it with Marianne, and now he is seeing it with himself.
Magnified, sanctified be thy holy name. Vilified, crucified in the human frame.
The contrast of magnified, sanctified, and vilified, crucified shows Cohen's changing attitudes towards God. If God made man in his image, then how can God be any good? The Jewish influence is prominent in this song, as with much of his work, with the choir from Cohen's childhood synagogue singing on it. It goes without saying that the Jewish people have suffered greatly throughout history, and here Cohen questions how their God could let man inflict such pain on another man, especially if man is made in the image of God.
A million candles burning for the help that never came.
The help that never came is every unanswered prayer anyone has made in their life.
Hineni, hineni. I'm ready, my lord.
Hineni is the Hebrew word for here I am, again echoing Cohen's earlier song, I'm Your Man. Cohen yet again drawing parallels between religion and love, the reckoning with God at the end of his life, similar to his reckonings with women throughout the years.
There's a lullaby for suffering and a paradox to blame.
Here, Cohen reiterates his earlier viewpoint that the existence of an all-loving God cannot be with all the suffering throughout history, with the contrast of lullaby and suffering showing this. To make it clear, I don't think this was Cohen abandoning his faith. I don't think he would have returned to the choir of his childhood synagogue if that was the case, but rather an expression of fear at the prospect of what is beyond, and the lack of help he receives in this fear from a deity that he's put so much faith in.
They're lining up the prisoners and the guards are taking aim.
I'm unsure about this line. I cannot decide whether I view Cohen as meaning prisoners in a literal sense, firing squads executing suffering behind a justification, often in the name of their supposed all-loving God, or if he's talking about himself as the prisoner of this game of life that he's talking about.
I struggled with some demons, they were middle class and tame.
The demons he has sung of in many of his biblical allusions are not contorted creatures of hell, but tame and ordinary people exerting suffering.
I didn't know I had permission to murder and to maim.
Why should Cohen not have done the same murdering and maiming as these people he derides here? What punishment will they receive, and won't it be the same as his? That essentially concludes all I wanted to say about Leonard Cohen across both these videos, and why I view him as one of the great artists of the last half century or so. His work's deeply personal and beautiful, and having talked a lot about how miserable Leonard Cohen seems to be, I'll finish with a more positive line, and my favourite line Leonard Cohen ever wrote, from his song Anthem.
There is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in.